Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now let's do another Matchbox kit. Let's look at this one. This is a 1976 issue of the Hanamag SD KFZ 2514/1. The original Roy Huxley box art, there's his name there. The Hanamag desperately trying to get away from a hurricane. So you got the rear gunner there with his MG34 blazing away. I know who my money's on, and it's not on the Hanamag. So this is, I've built this many times, but the scene that comes with it, let's have put my thumb over the post, otherwise I'll probably get a strike on YouTube, is a street scene. So it's like kind of like more of a European scene, whereas the box art is very much a desert scene. So what we're going to do, we're going to want to make the desert scene. So I have a spare base. This is from the Honey Stuart M3 from the Matchbox kit, which the vehicle went on the M19 tank transporter. So I've got the spare base, so I've glued it together. I'm probably going to like fill the edges in a bit more, make it a little bit more believable, because it's like a hard edge there. And then we'll put this Hanamag on it in Afrika Korps colours. So let's have a quick look at it. So there we've got the transfers again. I'll have to cover that up because it's just got like normal slogans on. So I mean, toys from 1976 are no longer allowed to be showed in 2025, but never mind. So the kit, like I said, I've built many times before. It's very nice, very crisp, very clean. It's got some great figures with it actually. So we have the machine gunner, and we'll have a crew member jumping out, hanging off the side there. You've got all the wheels and tires, all the running gear, front drivers and radio operator seat, etc. The tracks, fortunately, nice and flexible. They haven't fell apart like some do. But obviously, it's going to be the Afrika Korps version on this base with those figures. Actually, I've got an idea. Give me a second. I actually have these. I might put a couple of these on. Let's have a quick look. So these are these fell out. So I might be able to put, they're the same scale, aren't they? So that these are 1/76 scale as well. And I've got quite a few of them. So, oh, that would look good next to it. So the running soldier. So I might put a couple of extra figures on the base just to make it a little bit more dynamic. Yeah, so we've got some grenade. Oh, that's even good one. Look at that. So he could actually be inside the Hanamag firing his machine gun, his Schmeiser out. And we've got some kneeling soldiers as well, and they're quite nicely moulded, very little flash. So I think I might incorporate a couple of them into the scene as well. So I think the first thing to do is get the vehicle built. We'll have a quick look at the instructions. Should be fairly straightforward. Yeah, it's not too difficult. All the road wheels overlap each other, so we've got to get that right. Get the chassis built up, get the body on, the guns, the side armour, or the side panions I should say, exhaust, headlights, front bumper, and that's basically it. So that is going to be version 2, that's the European one. This is the one we want, the Afrika Korps one, so we'll go with that one. So it might have a grey undercoat with a sand top coat. I'm not quite sure which way to do it yet, but that's what I'm going to go for. So let's get started. Right, as we can see it, the half track's built up really nicely, and that is really built up perfectly well. What a perfectly fitting kit, no issues whatsoever. Now the tracks have gone on okay, so what I'm going to do when I get some primer on them, I'm just going to like super glue them onto the top there, so they'll run along the top of the wheels there, so it looks like they've got a bit of weight on. But I'm going to wait till I get primer on, because the super glue gives it a little bit extra grip. But otherwise, that's the half track made up. I have filled in the gutter sides around the diorama, but obviously I'm going to prime it first just to see what it looks like. If it needs a bit more filler on, I'll do that. The figures, these are the figures I'm going to use. So I'm going to have, obviously, these two come with the kit. So he's going to be firing the MG. It should be 34, but it's a 42 on it, but never mind. We're going to have him jumping out the back because he looks quite dynamic. But it is going to be Afrika Korps, so I'll paint them in like desert uniforms. We're going to have these two firing out the back of the half track. These are from the Matchbox sort of plastic 76 scale figures. And we're going to have this one running along the side of the half track as well. So it looks like he's jumped out. So it's going to look like a dynamic scene of attacking the enemy. So there's the machine guns, which look very good, but I think they should be MG34s, not 42s, but they look like 42s to me. That'll focus on that, but not to worry. So get some primer on all of this, clean up the figures a bit. I think I might put the figures aside and finish them last, but otherwise, that's such a lovely little model, that. An absolutely perfect fit. So we'll get some primer on that, some primer on the diorama. I'll put the figures away for now, and then we will get some paint on them and try and make them look desertized. Okay, now I thought I'd build the base. So that's the base all built up and primed. Now it's going to get a bit messy. I basically like to brush paint the base to the base, if that makes sense. So the base coat of the base is going to be based with base paints. Right, these are the three I've picked out. Not ideal, but it's basically what I've got in my collection at the minute. So I'm going to want to paint the track a bit of a darker colour, the rocky bits, the bit of a sandy colour, and the top of the rocky bits, this slightly lighter colour. So I'll quickly just put some on the palette and just show you how I do it. If there's any paint left in that. Oh, there's no paint left in that. A little bit left in there. Don't see that. Can we see that? A little bit left in there. Like I say, it's going to be really messy, and it's just basically the start of painting the base, and a little blob of that there. And I've got some clean water. So we're basically just going to like start from the bottom and work our way up. Bit of water on the big brush, grab a load of the earth colour and basically just slap it on. The grey is going to come through. Like I say, this is just the start. I'll just give you a rough idea of what we're trying to achieve. Don't have to be careful, just absolutely whack it on like that. So as we go up the rocks, I'm going to want to put some of that on and change its colour again. Well, I'm definitely going to change that. That's way too yellowy. So we'll do that. When we get to the top, I'm going to put a bit of the lighter colour on and fade it down, as you can see, and then blend it in. Like I say, we're going to have to do that a couple of times because we do have a bit of bleed through on the grey undercoat. So I'll finish that, then we'll see what it's like when we're done. Right, so there's the base, brush painted, absolutely disaster, looks horrendous. So we're gonna dispense with that, and we're gonna pull out the Tamiya model Tamiya acrylics. So I've got the desert yellow, so I'm going to quickly give the half track a quick blast over with that. This is basically just a base coat, so as simple as that. Just going to absolutely lather it on, obviously without causing any runs or drips, you know. Let's see what we can do there. So this is like the dark yellow, but I'm going to lighten it up a bit because I want to give it a faded sort of appearance, sun bleached appearance. So I'm going to continue with that. So I'll quickly do that, then I'll show what I'm going to do with the base. Right, so that's the base coat on the half track. I've painted the inside grey just to say it's like been imported to North Africa in its original Panzer grey, and I've like sprayed a little bit of you can see where the pan lines are, just a little bit of grey in that, just add a little bit more interest. Obviously I'm going to lighten this well up because I really want it to like look like it's been in the sun for quite a bit and you've had some paintwork fade. Got a little bit of a seam there to sort out, and a little bit down there. Basically all I'm going to do is thin some micro crystal clear and just run it in those seams, just basically to fill them, because when I go over and dust them off and do a bit more work, they'll disappear. But that's the sort of base coat yellow I'm looking for. So we now move on to the base itself. Like I say, it didn't work out how I wanted to. So I've loaded up the airbrush with some deck tan from Tamiya. Where's it? No, wooden deck tan. So I'm going to spray the base that, just sort of fade it in, and then a bit of buff on top of that. Usually with these slightly smaller models, especially the Matchbox ones, I try and make them just a little bit more colourful. Not so much toy-like, but give it a bit more interest. So, you know, it's a very, very small scale. So a bit of not over the top, but a bit of brightness gives it a bit of a nice effect. So just going to gently airbrush all this in, just the buff, the deck tan, just to try and cover a bit of this sort of garish yellow, and try and tie it together a bit, fade it in a bit. So as you can see, it's sort of coming together a bit better there. Give it a bit more of a dusty appearance. A couple of holes to sort out on the road as well. I'll leave the road slightly darker because you know, I would like to make it look a bit more, again, tonal, a bit more contrast between the road and the rocks. Okay, I'm going to continue with that. So now that's that painted. I'm now going to go in with a buff tan, but I'm just basically just going to hit the highlights. I'll turn the pressure down a bit as well because it's a bit high. So basically just the highlights on the rocks, feed them in a bit, weather it in, feather it in. Again, it'll just be a bit random. Try and avoid the channels. Right, I'm going to keep working that and put some highlights on it. So this is the look we end up with. Again, I don't know if it comes across well on this this camera and this light. Like I say, it's just my phone. So I've got some nice highlights on the rock outcrops. I still want to bring it in lighter, so I'm going to tie, obviously you need to tie the vehicle into the base because they're two slightly different colours there, so they don't quite look right. So I really want to lighten them up again, so I'll probably tie them both in with this pale sand colour. So I'll airbrush the half track and weather it in with that and get some on the surrounding diorama to tie them together because they need to look like they belong together. But it's still looking a bit flat, not very artistic, so we're definitely going to bring it together with some light washes, very light, and pick out some highlights and try and give a bit more interest into these rocky outcrops and obviously the exploded mine or shell explosion or whatever it is. Then there's the figures to go with it as well. Right, okay, it's not actually looking too bad. So I've done a little dry brush on there as well to pick out the highlights. So it's not looking too bad. I'm quite happy with that actually, but I want to give a little bit of depth to it. Again, I've given the half track a little bit of a dry brush, but we're going to do a bit more work on that. Now I want to put a wash on it, so I've just made some sort of like a raw brown, sort of like quite a thin, warm colour, just to gently dab onto some areas. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, just maybe so like the crater, see what it looks like. Just in the crater area, pick out some depth there, you can see that. Around the crater again, so it's quite thin, quite a warm colour. I don't want to overdo it because I want this to look dry and arid and hot, you know. So I'll pick out some areas like that, and we'll get some, don't let it pool by the way, and we'll get some shadow in there as well. As for the half track, get a slightly smaller paintbrush, that one will do. Again, I just want to pick out some small areas. Again, just let the capillary action do the job. Don't overdo it. Just quickly show you on the side panel there, so you just dab it on there. And just lift it off there if it's gone too far, a little bit too much on there and a bit on there. So you can see how it sort of adds a little bit depth there, and that's what you want. You don't want to go too mad. Remember, it's quite a small model, don't overwhelm it. So I'll get that on, then we'll get the transfers on, and then we'll go from there. Right, I've moved on a little bit, so I've blocked some colours in, and I'll put the transfers on. Again, we've settled down absolutely perfectly, so we'll have a little gloss coat, transfers on, a bit of setting solution, and they've gone down very, very nicely. I say I painted the tracks, the front tyres, a bit of work on the inside. Now I want to tie it all together with a base, so I'm actually going to go with the Tamiya Buff still, XF57, thin down quite a bit. Just turn the pressure down a little bit because I just want to basically bring it in across the bottom of the chassis, bottom of the wheels, just to drift it up a little bit, just to blend it in like in the center of panels and stuff. You can see that bit on there as well, just to bring it in a bit with the base. Very difficult to see, I know. I'm light color upon a light color. Let's see if we can get the effect there. So it's like the dust has settled on the wings and on the upper surfaces and around the wheels, and you just lighten the tyres up a bit, I should say, and a bit on the tracks, bring them into continuity with the base. That's what I'm going to be looking for on the vehicle, and I'll just put a little bit on the tracks here, just add a bit more dust, so like you've got the same colour on the vehicle and the same on the base. Right, so I'll finish that now. Okay, we're doing quite well with the vehicle and the base, so I'm pretty much happy with how that's come out. I've given it another slight wash and another dry brush. Never be afraid to do the same technique again on the vehicle. It just gives a bit more depth, a bit more enhancement. Now what I have done, I'll see if I can point it out. You might see some like highlights on the top of the headlamps, and a bit of like chipping and whatnot along the sides. It just, and well, probably down there you can probably see it a bit better, and like on the wheel hubs. Basically just touched it in with some of this. So Vallejo, like it's a desert, a pale sand. So just thinned it down a bit on my palette and just rolled the brush over it just to give a added highlights and gives it a bit more interest. And I think it works quite well. Again, you don't want to overwhelm it because it's quite a small vehicle. The base is done, the vehicle's done. I might do a little bit more on the exhaust there, but I've airbrushed a bit of black there and a little bit of black in the bottom of the shell hole to like give the impression of a burnt, charred bit of ground, bit of sand. I might do a little bit more on the interior, but not that much. But otherwise, the vehicle and the base are done. I'll give them a coat of matte varnish. We'll get the machine guns on. We'll get the figures done, which are down here, just getting block coloured in, washing a dry brush, and we're nearly there. And like I say, coat of matte varnish, and it's another one done. Right, and after a little bit more work, a bit of detailed paint work on the figures, nothing special. The coat of matte varnish, there we go. That's the completed model. So combining a couple of Matchbox products, mix and match on the bases, I managed to produce what I wanted, a desertized version of the Hanamag, sorry, and popping a couple of extra figures from this Afrika Korps box. This was absolutely mint when I bought it on eBay, but unfortunately he just stuck, the seller just put it in an envelope and the postman just rammed it through the letterbox, so it's pretty much destroyed. So I thought I'd take some figures out of there. But there we go. So we've got 4 figures, 1 dismounting, 1 running, and 2 offering cover and fire. And I think it's turned out quite nicely. So if you follow the techniques, if you like the techniques that I've done, you can follow them and get a similar sort of effect. There's quite a bit of work gone into that to giving you that sort of faded, sandy look on the half track. But otherwise, I'm quite pleased with it. I'll obviously put some images up at the end, some close-up views. But there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'm supposed to say like and subscribe. I'm not bothered about that. If you like the videos, that's great. If you don't, well, I'll try harder next time. But otherwise, I'll put some images up at the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and on to the next one.